are joined now by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Houston. Thank you so much for joining us, Congresswoman. I'd like to start with the dire weather situation there where you are in Texas, with many of your constituents dealing with the freezing cold and power outages of the last 24 hours. And I'd like to show an image that's drawn some outrage with the Houston skyline all lit up while residential areas there are dealing with rolling blackouts. Any sense on how this has happened and what's being done at this point to make sure that power is being utilized appropriately during this weather emergency?
Well, Lindsay, first of all, thank you for having me during these very, very difficult times. I've been with local officials, and they're equally outraged as I am, as those who might see it are as well. You know, I call that just non-thinking persons. These are tall skyscrapers for our size city. They have management companies, and everyone likes to see their skyline. But in these difficult times, you should realize, and I think the picture shows, that around those tall buildings are communities with mothers and fathers and children and senior citizens and people with critical needs who have absolutely no power. We've asked them to shut their power off, meaning turn their lights off and stop using the power. We don't know, obviously, if people are in the buildings during the day, people have to work. But this is absolutely, I believe, insensitive. And the mayor and other local officials have asked for those lights to be off to conserve power, because we have yet to be able to receive even an iota of information from our state agency, which is ERCOT. And they may be working hard, but they're not communicating with local officials and or just plain residents. And those individuals don't know the time of the hour when we might go on. That's why I'm working so hard to find alternative resources to be able to help ERCOT, hopefully to pull down energy to be able to use in the state.
As millions of Texans start another night in the dark, I understand that you've reached out to the U.S. Department of Energy to provide assistance. But Texas gets its power through private companies that supply ERCOT and that independent system that manages the flow of electricity in the state that you just mentioned. So I assume it's safe to say that you've not been satisfied with their response to this crisis. So what happens now?
Well, I'm absolutely not satisfied. And what has now been highlighted is the very poor infrastructure and poor energy system that the state has. Well, who would know that? We know how to deal with hurricanes. We know how to deal with tornadoes. But who would know that in a state that is known for its energy, even windmills, that our infrastructure is so poor? It's all at the feet of the state at this point. You may know that we're facing another weather calamity tonight with more ice coming. We're just not used to it. And then we're trying to stand up our warming centers where people might be able to feel comfortable in getting to before the storm comes again. We don't have it under control the way we would like to, but we want everybody to realize that we're not stopping until we can get some help and particularly get the power on.
And wishing you all the best through this next cold snap there. I want to turn back to Washington. You serve, of course, on the House Homeland Security Committee with Congressman Benny Thompson, who joined with the NAACP today to file suit against former President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and other groups that they claim were responsible for inciting the Capitol attack. How confident are you that these types of legal cases can be successful in holding the former president accountable for the attack, or could they also fall short?
Well, Lindsay, I just want to give you a heads up. There may be more lawsuits. I applaud the NAACP, its lawyers, and certainly Chairman Benny Thompson. I serve on that committee. I'm second in seniority, and we were the leaders, including the chairman, on the question of white supremacy, white racism for many years ago, a few years ago, and we were not listened to, frankly, as the first voices that talked about the rising threat of white nationalism, white supremacy as it relates to domestic terrorism. It is tragic that it culminated at the citadel of democracy on January 6th, led by now the former president of the United States. So I think this is an appropriate lawsuit. And no, I don't think that it has the total possibility of not prevailing. I think it has a good chance. You know, in the court of law, you look for justice. You look to be able to present your case. Most importantly, you hope that they will see that there should be a remedy
And lastly, you introduced legislation that would start a commission to study and develop plans on providing reparations for African Americans, which you'll have a hearing on tomorrow. Why do you feel that the timing for right now, that this is needed at this moment, and given the many pressing legislative items that the Biden administration and Democrats are pushing that could cost trillions of dollars, what do you say to those critics who say that this isn't the right time to push for reparations on top of all of that?
I ask them the question, why? And I give them the phrase, why we can't wait. And I also join with the Biden administration that says we can do many things at once. It's a healing factor. I don't look to do this tomorrow in this hearing in acrimony and anguish. I look to do it as a factual basis for moving this bill to the floor. And why is that? We're delighted to have representatives of the United Nations that will explain that this is an international legal concept. It's not something we created here. It deals with restorative and repair, which is needed in this nation. And also this legislation answers this simple question. If you have an African American with a high school education and a white American with a high school education, that white American will have 10 times more wealth than the African American. We want to heal and show the continuing disparities that have been and can be attributed to the heinous act of bondage and slavery of individuals for over almost 200 years. It will be factually based. We'll have hearings. We'll put forward a report and proposals of how do you deal with the ongoing disparities that triggered from as far back as slavery. We believe this is a healing moment in our country. This is a moment to say, I apologize. Let's see how we can move forward together. That's what H.R. 40 is all about.
Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, we hope that you and your constituents stay safe tonight. We thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me at this time.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.